So, hello. I wanted to talk a little bit about the message that I preached this last weekend and just kind of expand on one part of it. So in the sermon we were talking about, I explained Psalm 40, and I talked about it in the context of discipleship. I talked about David being described as a man after God's own heart. It was someone searching after what God wants and looking for the things that God wants and advocating for the things that he wants. And I said that the discipleship process is that. It's going after God's own heart. And we described it as knowing, growing, and reaching. And we talked about the importance of all of us, every person in the pew, doing their part to change both our church and our community. And we talked about Numbers, chapter 1 and chapter 23, about taking a census of what we had. And we talked about the fact that God wanted the Israelites to know that they had enough people to conquer the promised land. And we also talked about Jesus feeding 5,000 men on the mountainside, and talked about how God showed that they had enough to feed all those people. So what I wanted to say was that it's not what we don't have, it's what we do already have that we need to work with. And the same idea applies to church. I hear so many times that, we don't have enough. We don't have enough people, and we don't have enough talents and gifts, and we don't have enough money. But if everyone does their part, then there's plenty of people on our church rosters. There's plenty of people in the pews. We have boatloads of talents and gifts, and we have enough money. How do we know that God really thinks we have enough? God equips those he calls. If he calls Trinity Lutheran Church to be a place that makes disciples, then he thinks we already have enough to do the job. We're called to be his disciples and then asked to have the faith to step back and know that God will get us through. We're called to give our fish and our loaves and then step back and watch God work. There's a passage in Malachi 3, verses 8 and 10, where God, through the prophet Malachi, says, "Will a mere mortal rob God? Yet you rob me." And he says, "But you ask, how are we robbing you?" And God says, "In tithes and offerings, you're under a curse, your whole nation, because you are robbing me. Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there might be food in my house." God says, test me in this, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will be not enough room to share it. I know that this passage is talking about tithes and offerings, and most people automatically go right to money. But I believe God considers our time, our talent, our treasures as offerings to him as well. God says test him. He challenges each and every one of us to pull all of our resources into the work of making disciples, and then step back and watch him work. It's a conditional promise. God says, do this, or you do this, and then I'll do that. We have to, in James 2:17, it says, "In the same way, faith by itself, if it's not accompanied by action, is dead." We have to take action, not stay on the sidelines. If we don't give of our time, our talents, and our money, we cannot expect God to bless this congregation. Discipleship takes a commitment. And if we individually and as a church community aren't willing to commit to God's will in our lives, then we can't expect to reap the benefits of a life with God. Come out and see us on Sunday mornings, 9 and 11 for church, and have a great day.